When you think about the law, what comes to mind? Probably some giant, dusty rule book, right? Something super complicated and, let's be honest, kind of boring. But what if it's not? What if it's actually this incredible blueprint, a master plan for how a society of over 1 billion people agrees to live together? Let's take a look.
I mean, really, stop and think about that for a second. How do you even begin to design a system that's fair, that works, and that's humane for a population that massive and that diverse? It is, without a doubt, one of the biggest social engineering challenges on the entire planet. The scale is just staggering. So where do you find the answers? Well, it turns out, not in some ancient, inaccessible book. We found them in a really practical place, a master guide, basically a cheat sheet for the All India Bar examination. See, this is the guide that boils down all these huge, complex legal ideas into their core logic. It's what you really need to know. And for us, it's the perfect key to unlocking the whole system. And check this out. This quote from the guide just nails the kind of practical wisdom we're talking about. It says that if an officer is just following a court order, acting in good faith, they can't be held criminally liable for it, even if that court order is later found to be invalid. See? It's not about some abstract, perfect ideal. It's about being pragmatic and protecting people who are just trying to do their job. So, with that idea of practical wisdom in mind, let's dive into our first big theme. This is all about how the law carves out a special space to protect you, the individual, to guard your rights and your dignity, even when things get really tough. Okay, so what's with this number? Just 14. What could that possibly mean? Believe it or not, in the context of Indian law, this single number represents a powerful line drawn in the sand, all to protect a fundamental human need. And here's what it's all about. The law says no matter what crime was committed, you cannot put someone in solitary confinement for more than 14 days straight. What's so incredible about this is that the law itself is acknowledging that even punishment has to have limits, that you cannot just break a person's spirit. It's a really powerful statement about basic human dignity.
Now here's another tricky question the law has to answer. At what exact moment does a bad thought become an actual crime? This slide shows that critical line. Just preparing to commit a crime, say buying poison, isn't punishable. But the moment you attempt it, the moment you actually try to administer the poison, boom, you've crossed the line. It's a crucial distinction that focuses on actions, not just intentions.
Let's look at another example of the law's really practical, almost compassionate side. Picture this. A family suffers a terrible loss in a traffic accident. Should the law really force them to go through a long, agonizing court battle to prove who was at fault just to get some financial help? Thankfully, the answer is no. A doctrine called no-fault liability steps in to provide immediate fixed compensation because it recognizes that people need help now, not after years of fighting in court.
All right, so we've seen how the law protects individuals. But that's only half the story. The system itself has to be fair. It needs to have clear rules of the game to make sure it's a fair contest for everyone involved. And this next one is a huge one. It's a legal principle called res judicata. Now, it's a Latin term, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It basically means a thing that's been judged. And it ensures that once a court makes a final ruling, you can't just keep suing the same person over the same thing again and again. It's all about finality and closure. And the process is just common sense when you break it down. First, the case gets a full hearing. Second, everybody gets to make their arguments. Third, the court issues a final decision. And fourth, that's it. The matter is closed. Forever. This prevents people from abusing the system and makes sure a court's decision actually means something. Now, this next quote, wow. This is absolutely central to the whole idea of a fair trial. It means the prosecutor's job isn't just to get a win for the police. Their primary duty is to the court and to justice itself. They're supposed to present all the facts fairly, even if some of those facts don't help their case. It's a vital check on the power of the state. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. Because the law doesn't just manage fights between individuals. It has a much bigger job, managing the huge competing forces within an entire society. The government, big corporations, and, of course, the public. It's a constant, delicate balancing act.
And this right here is the perfect example of that balancing act. On one side, you've got the public's fundamental right to know what's going on, right? Freedom of expression. But on the other side, you have the state's duty to protect national security, which sometimes means keeping things secret. The law has to live in that tricky, tense space right in the middle, trying to find the right balance.
So what happens when a big company causes some serious harm, like environmental damage? Who's responsible? Well, what's so interesting is how the law handles this. Of course, the company itself is liable, but it doesn't stop there. The law says the company's officers, the actual human beings in charge, can be held personally responsible unless they can prove they did everything they reasonably could to prevent it. It cuts right through the corporate shield to demand real accountability.
And you see this balancing act playing out all over the place. For example, the law encourages people to invent new things through patents. But if your invention is crucial for national defense, the government can step in and say, sorry, this has to be kept secret. It's a classic case of public safety being weighed against an individual's private interests.
Okay, so after all this, what's the big picture? What's the main takeaway? It's that the law isn't just a static set of commands. It's more like a living, breathing system, a toolkit that we, as a society, have built over centuries to solve real human problems. And if you look closely, you can see its core logic. First, it's built to protect the individual, your dignity, your rights. Second, it's designed to make sure the game itself is fair for everyone. And third, it's always balancing the power of big players, like the state and corporations, against the rights of citizens. It's a system for solving problems, not just for handing out punishments.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. This legal logic was built to solve the problems of its time. But what about tomorrow? When you think about things like artificial intelligence, climate change, and genetic engineering, what are the new giant problems the law is going to have to figure out next? The system will have to adapt, because one thing is for sure, the story of the law is far from over.